So the topic for today's video is, do you find yourself trying really, really hard to heal from chronic illness or chronic pain, chronic fatigue, whatever it is? For some people, you're just on a healing journey from your past traumas or whatever. And the trap that I find a lot of people falling into is trying too hard to heal, that you send yourself into this kind of vicious cycle of putting so much pressure on yourself to do what you should be doing or what you believe you need to be doing. But the funny thing is, what that's actually doing is probably stressing you out more and doing the opposite of healing. Because where I'm coming from for this as well is, I was speaking with somebody the other day, and they asked me the question of, how do I slow down these emotional releases that are happening? They found themselves being constantly overwhelmed by emotional releases, trauma releases, and then that combined with then a lot happening in the body, right? So they found that when they were having these emotional releases, there would be these big adjustment periods afterwards where they would be absolutely floored with symptoms because it was a lot for their body to process. And maybe you found some techniques that you're trying, but the technique that I try to share is very much a letting go of the need to fix, letting go of the need to react. And people can struggle with this because it can sound very foreign to what our minds are used to, right? We're always looking for a solution. We're always looking for a way to fix. It's literally, in some senses, it's very paradoxical because it's simultaneously the easiest thing to do, but the most difficult as well, because it's the most foreign to how the mind even works. Right? The mind literally operates on, I need to be solving a problem. So, the invitation here is to explore more of what happens if I give myself space where I don't need to be forcing anything to happen. So you're not actively trying to heal, you're not actively trying to release traumas, you're not actively trying to, sometimes you can do that, right? You can do inquiry around, why am I reacting this way to something? What don't I want to feel? But even these sorts of inquiries can be done from a very kind of passive space, in the sense of opening up to what's here, right? So the way I would approach this is, for example, if I'm feeling a lot, right? If I'm feeling whatever, if I've just been very busy and very stressed out, and I could feel that there's a lot going on in the body, it's the way that I respond to that is not any way of, okay, what do I do to respond to these symptoms and this overwhelmed state in my body? I need to fix it, I need to get out of it. It's not at all like that. So let's say I've been too busy and too stressed and I've just overworked myself, then what I would do is I would just sit and give myself 20 minutes, half an hour. Nowadays I don't really set a timer. I'll just sit and focus on, just for a while, I'll just sit there, see what's kind of moving through the mind, right? It's very much a non-doing. Just allow thoughts to come and go. And the one inquiry I do is to just orient towards what is it that's feeling uncomfortable in my experience? What is it that I'm trying to, that I don't want to feel, but in a gentle, subtle way? But yeah, really kind of leaning into that is, without a need to do anything about it, is incredibly powerful. I mean, it undermines what's driving the whole cycle of stress based on trying to get away from something, getting more and more stressed out and worked up because you feel some symptoms coming on that you're afraid of, right? So in some senses it might seem like a difficult practice because you have to just stop and allow yourself to feel what's there, but it's so worth it because you don't actually have to do anything about it. That's the crazy thing. When you really allow yourself to feel whatever it is you were truly afraid to feel, and you just give yourself some space, and it can become a very intuitive practice as well. For me, there will be I can feel what starts to happen is my energy starts to drop lower into the body as well. So especially if I've been talking to people a lot, right? When I'm talking a lot, I can feel that pulls your energy up into the head, right? Especially if it's somebody that's very much up in their mind. And you can feel when somebody's disconnected from their body. If I'm talking to somebody that is so bound up in the thought world that they're closed off from their body, I can literally feel the energetics of that in the conversation. And sometimes I get pulled into that as well. And then giving myself some space to just kind of let my energy settle again. And what starts to happen is, once I've been sitting for a while in stillness, I can feel my breathing starts to settle deeper into my body. I can feel energy kind of like that gets all pulled up into the head, starts to kind of release. So just kind of inviting your energy to drop down as well can be a sort of practice, right? What would it be like to drop attention down into the body? Even if your mind's very busy, that's fine. You don't need to control thoughts. Trying to control thoughts generally just stirs up your mind, right? So just allow whatever thoughts are moving through your mind to move through your mind. Just kind of have like an open space that any thought, any sensation is allowed to be here. And another one that I always like to do is just feeling into, because what tends to happen is we get contracted as well. And you can practice, what does it feel like to soften? And maybe that doesn't make sense at first, but it's an inquiry that can yield fruits over time as it becomes more and more intuitive, in the sense that, what is it like to just release anywhere where it feels like I'm holding tension? This, the feeling of being you is an energetic contraction as well. That might sound strange, but it's true that if I'm doing, over time, this process has just deepened for me. And nowadays, the energy just feels like, if I'm engaging with people a lot, if I'm talking with people a lot, this kind of energetic contraction starts to form that feels like me. And then if I give myself some space to sit, I can just feel like, what if I just release, and it starts to feel like there's no point that you're perceiving from, actually, which is initially we're very afraid of that, because it's groundless. It's the mind is trying to create a false sense of solidity. And as we start to let go more, you go deeper, there's fear barriers that also kind of want us to clench on, because we'll feel into sensations that we've so long been running from. Often it comes down into the gut, right? I can feel like, wow, there's still contraction down there in the gut, and it's just, again, but the key here is you're not forcing anything, you're just allowing things to open on their own. So the invitation is just to simplify whatever approach you're taking to healing, whether it's symptoms, whether you're on an awakening path. And generally alongside awakening there'll be lots of energetic stuff playing out in the nervous system. Honestly, the overlap between chronic illness and awakening is very similar, and sometimes the two are playing out like in together, so whatever it is, just drop the need to be making something happen, to be creating a certain state, to be forcing yourself either to get into a calm state, to force yourself into emotional releases, to force yourself to release the traumas. Just experiment with, you can call it natural meditation, or just sitting in stillness and see what comes up. There's often a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear to completely letting go of all agendas and techniques, because then the mind is like, well, what's going to come up? Maybe that thing that I'm most afraid of is going to come up. The fears that we're constantly running from are given space, but it's worth it because you see that there was nothing to run from. It was just an experience that we become so conditioned to avoiding, and then we just believe every single thought and avoidance pattern the moment it arises that says no, don't go there. So it's a combination of getting out of your thoughts as well. I think that's quite important as well. If you're sitting there, it doesn't matter what the mind is saying, right? If your mind is saying, oh no, I'm meditating badly, oh no, things are getting too much, oh no, whatever, I don't know what to say. We'll say things specific to your story, right? Because I've spoken to people who have very different interpretations of what's happening. You might have very similar sensations, but for some people it might have a very spiritual story that, oh, this is happening. For some people it might have a very physiological story that this and this and this is happening, based on health, based on spirituality, whatever. And the more we get caught up in those thoughts, that's where all the struggle arises. But if you can just see it as a thought, right? Just see, it doesn't matter what the mind is saying. That's just what's appearing in the space right now. Those thoughts might be saying, oh no, whatever. And just allow that. Allow it. And then eventually you see that the mind was so busy because we were becoming disconnected from the sensations, if that makes sense. It takes a while to feel into this, but as we sit in stillness for longer and longer, and just, again, continuously just allow things to naturally open up, release, go where they go, you start to see that, oh, my mind was so busy because things were building up in the body, and that's how we were conditioned to avoid it. The busier your mind, probably the more discomfort there is in the body. It becomes very obvious at some point that that's what's unfolding. It's so much the case for me. Again, if I've been talking a lot, and then I'm just in this mental world, and the specific, there's a difference. I can sometimes have a conversation with somebody who's also quite grounded, and then you can rest more in the energy of the body while you're having a conversation. But for most people, that's quite intense. So it's when you're having these heady conversations, very intellectual, very abstract, very much about past and future and stories and imagination, that you can feel you're probably going to have to do some grounding later on. And then, you can just approach it the way I've been speaking about, just kind of get curious. I think that's another key, is allow curiosity to be the foundation of your practice. Curiosity and openness and allowance, that you're allowed to explore all of your experience. And then for me, the curiosity always leads towards, what am I afraid to feel? And then just really get curious about that. Okay, there's stories playing up in my mind saying like, oh, you know, too much has happened that's made me feel uncomfortable. What is that referencing? What am I afraid to feel? But you don't need to do it like that. You don't be like, I need to figure this out. Just curious, open, allow yourself to explore the textures of experience and see what happens. Often what happens is a feeling that we're running from is just an intense energetic experience. It's just something that has an intense intensity to it, and that could even be pleasurable once you get closer to it. But it pulls us out of our heads, which is why we run from it. And it's and sometimes the energy needs to be released, so you can move the body as well. You can do intuitive movement, you can do intuitive dance, you could just shake your body around. I like cold showers as well to get me into the body sensations. You could, go for a walk. But what's really nice is things where you move the body in non-linear ways. So like movements that you're not sticking to some sort of planned mental movement. This is what's cool about intuitive movement, is you're literally just dancing like a spastic, and it gets you out of your head because you're not planning how you're going to move. So anyways, those are some strategies and techniques, and all the best, and just don't be too hard on yourself. Alrighty, cheers.